Okay, it's been 4 days since we finished filming the craziest and probably the most outlandish video we've ever done for this channel. And I'm not completely recovered yet. It started at a restaurant on the western side of Bangkok province called, and this is the actual name, Shing-a-Ring-a-Ring. It's a place Daria and I found one time because we were looking around Google Maps when we were out exploring the countryside. And then it looks like the kind of place that you might build if your only frame of reference for Western architecture was like Tim Burton movies. Now, when we started to film, the idea was that we'd come here to start our series on rural Thailand by showing you what you might find at the edge of urban civilization here. But then I called an audible. See, there's another reason we wanted to film at Shing-a-Ring-a-Ring. It might be an absolutely ridiculous place, but the food menu is genius. Each dish on their list of specialties comes with a story. There's stewed meat from a recipe from the daughter of King Rama V. There's a spicy soup that came to Thailand from East Java, Indonesia in the 19th century. And then there are 3 dishes that are credited to something called the Verse of Food and Dessert, written by the Thai King Rama II in the year 1800. Now, if you're watching this channel, you're probably like me, where if you see something like that, you need to know more. Especially when a quick Google search tells you that this epic poem was also the very first reference ever recorded to a dish called masaman curry, along with 14 other savory dishes that together would become the backbone of Thai cuisine. But in terms of any more information, that was where the well ran dry. See, the poem was written in an archaic form of royal Thai language that's basically incompatible with modern translators. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find a single source anywhere that explained in English what the dishes actually were. But this was the holy grail. A list of the favorite foods of the Thai king more than 200 years ago, written just 16 years after the establishment of modern Bangkok. A list that could teach us nothing less than the history of modern Thai food. Are you kidding me? So we decided on the fly that we were gonna scrap our shooting plan and instead go on a mission to try to find the food from the story. To try as many of the dishes as we could find. To make the first ever English translation of the Verse of Food and Dessert. And to do it all in one single day. I'm literally at my breaking point of what I'm capable of eating in one day. So here's what we know going in. In the late 1700s, Prince Isarasundhorn, the son of the first modern Thai emperor and crown prince of the kingdom, had fallen deeply in love with a young woman from a powerful family also connected to the Siamese dynasty, known by the name of Princess Bunrat. Now, the princess came from a family that was half Chinese, and she'd spent her youth traveling extensively from the southern tip of the empire to the Chinese communities of central Siam. I don't know what the 18th century Siamese word would be for foodie, but that was her. She was said to adore big flavors, the bolder the better. And when she traveled, she'd bring her royal cooks to learn whatever recipes she might find and favor. You know the expression, the fastest way to a woman's heart is through her stomach. So when around the start of the new century, the prince was tasked with composing a song to be played at a ceremony for the royal launching of barges along the Chao Phraya River, he wrote a piece intended for an audience of 1. He wrote a melody of his love for Princess Bunrat through metaphors comparing his infatuation with all of her favorite foods. And because the poem was written to the melody of a traditional Thai song, we actually know exactly what it sounded like. Here you go.
แกงไก่มัสมั่นเนื้อนพคุณพี่เอ๋ย
Anyway, 9 years later, after the death of the first modern Thai king, Prince Isarasundhorn and Princess Bunrat would become King Rama II and Queen Sri Suryendra. Together, the two would become regarded as some of history's greatest cultural rulers. It was said that if you were a poet in the time of King Rama II, you would find yourself with a place of nobility. And so beloved were the king and queen that the story of their favorite foods would spread across the empire, inspiring locals in Bangkok to travel south to learn Masaman curry, and incorporating Chinese techniques and ingredients previously unknown in the kingdom, things like lychee, into the Thai cultural lexicon. Now you'd think that something this significant to Thai food history would be widely known today, but there are two reasons why it's been almost lost to history. First, as we mentioned, is the old royal vernacular used in the writing. And second, it's not exactly straightforward. It's written in metaphors so florid that it's pretty much one big riddle. Like this dish from Shing-a-Ring-a-Ring. The dish is called La Tiang, but it's written approximately like this. I am thinking of your bed. It is golden, and if we are together, it will be like heaven. It's interesting and complicated. I want to sleep in that bed. Now maybe if you happen to be a scholar of the Imperial Thai language and an obsessive foodie, you could parse out that metaphor. La Tiang actually translates to hunt bed, basically a bed made for game meat. So to track down the dishes, we'd have to get inside the head of the great King Rama II. We'd need to retrace the footsteps of the queen. And we'd have to parse out riddles in a language we don't even speak. But we'd made up our minds. It was too late to turn back now. And anyway, we had a head start. Thanks to Shing-a-Ring-a-Ring and the fame of Masaman curry, we already had the first 4 dishes down. 11 more to go. So we probably should have known that this wasn't something where we could just wing it. Like in retrospect, maybe we could have found a scholar of Imperial Thai history who might have been able to help, at least with the translation. I did place a few phone calls to some chef friends of mine, but it was like 9:30 in the morning, and no chef is going to answer their phone at 9:30 in the morning. I was so worried about failing at this mission that I didn't even think about how it would be if I succeeded at the mission and how much food I was actually going to have to eat. Did I just sign myself up for 15 meals in a single day? Anyway, back to the quest. To get inside the mind of King Rama II, I'd need to think like he had. So I tried to think about, what if it had been me trying to impress Princess Daria with the song about her favorite foods? If I really wanted to show that I cared about her, I'd write about the stuff from her childhood. Your heart is firm and starchy, and you are very versatile in your usefulness, just like your favorite vegetable, potato. Well, Princess Bunrod was half Chinese, and Bangkok at the time had a thriving Chinese immigrant community. It would stand to reason that she would have an affinity for Chinese food. We really didn't have a plan for the day beyond just showing the poem to whatever cooks we could find and asking if they either knew anything about it or could understand it enough to maybe recognize something familiar. So we figured we'd start right down the road from Shing-a-Ring-a-Ring, where there's a Chinese Thai noodle shop in an ancient wooden house by the canal. And now again, and I can't stress this enough, we were flying by the seat of our pants. So I thought from the photos on the walls and the style of the food that this was a place with a ton of history. As it turns out, the restaurant was only 3 years old. It's just really well designed. But thankfully, the owner really knew her stuff, and she was able to immediately point out 2 passages from the poem that sounded like Chinese Thai dishes with a really long history. Can you ask for the orange? Can she bring us just half of an orange? Or did I read it incorrectly in the description? Oh, so I'm reading it incorrectly. So now we had 6 off the list, which was awesome, but I was already starting to fill up, and with 9 meals left to go, I was immediately regretting eating a pound of pork liver. Now, the owner of the restaurant did mention that she actually does get customers from time to time, especially older customers, who will come in and ask for this dish exactly as it was described in the song. But thankfully for me, the details were lost in translation. I was expecting pork liver with orange juice and pepper, which sounds pretty grim, but what it actually meant was liver with pickled chili and vinegar. Anyway, I had a pretty good idea where we should go next after this, because if we're retracing the footsteps of the princess, and we know that she traveled far and wide, the one place that we do know for sure that she definitely spent time was in the far south, near the Malay Peninsula. We know that because of masaman curry. We even know the specific part of Thailand where that dish first came from, and it's the same region that we just covered a couple of weeks ago on this channel in our story about the Satay bean. Now, so far, we found 3 Imperial Thai dishes, 2 Chinese Thai dishes, but only masaman curry from the south. There must be more than that. So we called a car and headed back to that awesome cluster on the west side of the Chao Phraya to see what we might find. Now this was starting to get fun. The owner had actually heard of this poem and even knew that it was said to refer to some of the dishes from her family's home region. But she'd never actually read it before, and she was super excited to notice right away a reference to a bitter curry made with fish organs. This, she knew immediately, was Geng Tai Pla, the signature native dish of her home region. This is usually something that is it's challengingly spicy. I need my Pepsi. It's there's that second wave. Wow, yeah, that's really spicy. I mean, it's really good. But I would say that this is by far the spiciest thing that we've ever eaten on this channel. That wasn't the only dish that she spotted clear as day when she read the poem. And somehow, the other dish was something I eat at least once a week. It's yellow coconut curry made from a base of fish served with kanamjin fermented rice noodles. This might have been the most exciting revelation for me so far because it taught me something that I didn't know. I'd always understood kanamjin to be a northern Thai thing because that's where it's most famous today, but it turns out it's actually a specialty of an ethnic group called the Mon people, who are concentrated in Myanmar. And in Princess Bunrat's day, the Mon could be found throughout the border regions, including in the southern tip of the country, where their noodles mixed with Indian curry and southern Thai fermented fish to create this dish that's now common everywhere. And maybe it's common everywhere because it was included in this poem. So I guess if we're going to talk about how this poem actually impacted Thai cuisine and how these dishes might have spread, it is important that we take a step back to try to understand what the cuisine must have been like in Bangkok at the time the poem was written. So first, the basics. The city of Bangkok as we know it today was first settled on the banks of the Chao Phraya River around the 1600s as a customs point for boats entering Siam on their way to Ayutthaya, and a rice farming area in the low-lying plains. This was pretty much all we know about any settlement in this region until 1767, when King Taksin moved his imperial capital to Thonburi, which is the side of the river where we've been filming so far today. And then in 1784, King Rama I, the father of the man who wrote the poem, he set up a new palace on the opposite banks where it still sits today. Here we have to guess, but from the best available data, the population of the new capital in the year 1800 would have been between 30 and 40,000, of which the majority were ethnic Siamese relocated from Ayutthaya, and the others were split between immigrants and traders from China and from merchant kingdoms far and wide. So yeah, the food. We can safely assume that in a brand new city filled with people who arrived en masse from Ayutthaya, that the local food would have looked a lot like that cuisine. And while we don't know a lot about everyday Ayutthaya food, we do know that some of the dishes that survive until today got their start during that period. That includes things like miang kham, shrimp and tamarind wrapped in wild betel leaves and eaten with lime and chili, and like sangwa, which if that sounds familiar, it's because we've already found it today at Shing-a-Ring-a-Ring. But those were imperial dishes, not food eaten by the masses. For locals in that time period, we can look at one particular dish that appeared in abundance along the Chao Phraya. Tom klong, the soup we first tried in Nonthaburi with tune and yad, the precursor to modern tom yum. In the days before refrigeration and in a society along the river, locals would have consumed an awful lot of dried fish. And what we learned a couple months ago about tom klong is that locals here relied on 3 things to mask the smell of sun-dried fish. And those were chili peppers, tamarind, and the famous native plant from the region, Thai basil. And then we have fish sauce, something made from fermented crayfish and first recorded in Ayutthaya in the mid-1600s as a necessary seasoning for every meal. So basically, rice, basil, tamarind, fish sauce, and dried fish. That would be our best guess to describe the everyday core of Bangkok cuisine in the year 1800. So, does any of this information help us with our quest? No, not at all, but it's still pretty interesting to know what world Princess Bunrat was living in when she started finding these recipes, which in the year 1800, in an age before restaurant chains and grocery stores, this must have been like finding color in a black and white world. Anyway, so we left Ruam Tai, but we kept walking around the neighborhood. Here, there are a handful of restaurants from all over southern Thailand that serve rare cuisine from that region. So we showed the poem to a few of the other chefs and owners, and we did find another lead. A dish called gang kwa som, a sour soup made with gang kwa, which is the same red curry paste that's used as the base of like a Penang or masaman curry. Now, I suppose this kind of dish is the outcome of what might have happened when Indian Malay food first encountered Southern Thai traditions, and this was absolutely fascinating. But everywhere we checked, the dish was either sold out or not on the menu. Still, our quest fascinated the cooks that we met, and some of them knew of the poem itself and were proud of its connections to Southern Thai culinary heritage. And even though nobody had gang kwa som, just before we gave up, we found another place north of the local wet market that told us of another passage in the poem that they said referred to something else, a curry that the owner had made just this morning and which had nearly sold out, but thankfully he still had 1 portion left. This is called gang Thai po, and it might be one of the best things I've ever tasted. It's like masaman curry, rich with tamarind and coconut and red curry paste, except it's made with water morning glory or water spinach, which gives it a bitterness and almost pickled taste that's like elevating masaman to something way more complex and interesting. This was a home run, and it was also the 10th dish in the poem that we had now identified. All right, the next hour sucked. Here's a brief list of the kind of places that we walked into and then got laughed out of when we asked if they knew anything about the poem. Since we were striking out going place to place, the only thing we could think to try was to look again and again and again at the translation. Now, on my laptop browser, I had 4 different translations open, 3 of them incomplete attempts, of which 2 were clearly auto-translated.
And of course, I'd copied and pasted the entire thing into Google Translate. Now, none of these translations matched up perfectly with each other, which did make this a lot more complicated, but it at least let us compare to see where the similarities might have aligned. And there was one section I kept coming back to. In each translation, it came up as spiced rice. Spiced rice, cooked like nothing else, spiced rice with a special flavor. Now, some scholars online had speculated that this might have meant Indian rice pudding or something similar. But there was an entire section of this poem devoted only to desserts, so this didn't feel right. I kept plugging it into the translator, just mindlessly clicking over and over, and then, without even thinking about it, I broke it down into individual words. And that's when I got a different answer. Instead of spice, it now read cumin. Cumin rice. Or as it's better known, zira rice. A Punjabi staple known as long ago as the 1700s in Southeast Asia and sold just a few blocks from my house at a well-known Bangkok North Indian restaurant.
So to take you behind the scenes on our shooting days, if you're wondering, well, why didn't I just stage it for the camera? Like, why did I have to actually eat all this stuff, to the end? The answer is because Jasper's a you know how many times that there's been something that's like the 20th dish of the day, where I'm like, okay, here's a bite, and Jasper's like, okay, well, we need one more bite so I can get a different angle. Okay, all right, one more bite. Well, but then I need a close-up. Okay, I'm gonna try it in slow-mo. Like, I'm gonna do all these different angles, and I just have to keep sitting there like, oh, this is great. Oh yeah, oh wow, And meanwhile, it's like, we're 4 or 5 hours into nonstop eating. We've hit a wall. So what I'm doing, basically, to kind of tell you how we're sort of going about this at this point, is like, there are some clues as to what these dishes are. It's not all just riddles. The netted egg pancakes that we found at Shing-a-Ring-a-Ring, just koi shrimp seasoned with cosmetics, but that's a Google Translate. I don't know that I would eat an entire bowl of liver again. Have I learned anything? Mm-hmm. This is not a one-man job, and this is not a one-day investigation. Man, what was the name? Everything's blending together. We've had so much to eat today. It was the Gang Tai Po. I'm stuffed. What was the vegetable? Pickled what?
Morning Glory.
Morning Glory.
Oh, so good.
I like liver. I'm not complaining. It's a big, bold bunch of stuff that we've eaten. So yeah, let's see what we find, and then I'm literally at my breaking point of what I'm capable of eating in one day, and yeah, we'll stop there.
By now, I was not in a good place. I will point out, though, as bad as this was getting, I was also glad that we'd done this all in one day. Because it's like 200 years ago, a princess spent her life traveling across what must have felt like an endless country, exploring and encountering different people and cultures and tasting food that was so shocking, so mind-blowing to her, that it became part of her legacy. It took her 30 years to find all these dishes. So far, it had taken me less than a day to find 11 of them. For all the problems the world faces, we are lucky to be alive right now.
When I start to have deep thoughts like that, it probably means I'm slipping into a food coma. There were 4 dishes left, and believe it or not, we'd find all of them in our 3rd attempt at looking at a region called Isan. Now, we'd failed twice by walking into Isan restaurants, and we didn't even consider trying it again until by accident, we found ourselves looking at a map, not of Thailand today, but of what the Kingdom of Siam looked like in the days of Princess Bunrat's travels. Now, the story of Isan food in Bangkok usually starts in the 1950s. That's a century and a half after what we're looking for. But Isan food today is a term pretty much used interchangeably with Laotian food, food from the country of Lao. And there's a very long and very political story about why that is, and we will cover it sometime on the channel, but that's not the topic for today. But what is interesting is when you look at a map of Siam around 1800, Lao was actually divided into parts of 5 separate kingdoms. And together they represented a lot more territory than the country of Lao does today. So in food terms, Isan typically means Lao food. But in the Thai language, Isan just means northeast. And the northeast region of Thailand back then ended far from the banks of the Mekong River. One of the major cities in Isan today is a place called Khon Kaen. And at the time of Princess Bunrod, this was a critical outpost near the northeast border of Siam. This was a linchpin of both defense and trade with the nearby kingdoms. In fact, the city itself was established by edict of the Thai king Rama I, and it's said that the king himself and members of his family visited in commemoration of the city's foundation. That was in the year 1797, just 3 years before the writing of the verse of food and dessert.
We're back outside the city, this time to the north. This is a restaurant specializing in food from Khon Kaen, or specifically from the nearby province which was then the Siamese border, a place called Maha Serakham. Here we found the last 4 dishes from our poem. 2 are salads, very similar to larb, which is the Lao national dish, one with sliced beef and the other with sliced pork. Then there's raw shrimp seasoned with lime and chili. And finally, the last meal of the day, a soup made of fresh dill, a taste that felt more Eastern European than Southeast Asian, and something that must have felt as exotic to the princess as anything she'd ever eaten. That made 15, a culinary roadmap of the origins of modern Thai food, bringing together North, South, East, and West, introducing the new imperial capital to sour curries and Chinese soups and fresh Isan salads. Not everything would immediately catch on, and the best we can guess is that in the days before refrigeration, not every ingredient would have taken to the Bangkok tropical lowlands. Like, maybe that's why Masaman curry was a hit, and its more interesting cousin with herbs and vegetables endemic to the southern mountains faded back into obscurity, and why this amazing gang-om with fresh dill would stay a regional dish. We ended the day with a lot more questions, but those are the fun kind of questions. The hard part was done, and from now on, we had our list of the 15 savory dishes of the verse of food and dessert.
I just got home. I'm gonna weigh myself and see how much damage we did today. Well, so I gained 2 kilos. I gained 4.4 pounds while we were shooting today. 4.4 pounds. This is definitely an OTR record. So that was our mission, to find all 15 dishes from the verse of food and dessert. Did we get anything wrong? I have no idea. We did the best that we could. But what we do know is that these 15 dishes, or something very close to them, can all trace their roots back more than 200 years. And that thanks to a poem written from a prince to his princess, all of these dishes found their way to the brand new city of Bangkok. And right at the dawn of the brand new Siamese Empire, these were the dishes that would add color to the local cuisine and become a part of the foundation of what we now call Thai food. This was a really stupid idea. I I mean, it wasn't a stupid idea. Like, I think this is an important thing, and I know a lot more than we did when we started. But like, why would I punish myself like this? Like, we could have done this over 2 days and it would have been fine. There were a lot of things that we could have done that would have made this easier in retrospect, like not deciding on a mission like this that nobody's ever actually accomplished on the day that you're gonna film it. It's like, hey, you wanna go climb Mount Everest today? The cool thing for me is that there were dishes I'd never tried before. Like, there was stuff I didn't even know was here, and there's certainly stuff that changed our timeline of what we thought the history of some dishes coming to Bangkok was, like Isan food, which officially dates back to the 1950s in Bangkok. I mean, finding evidence that some Isan dishes were here, 150 years earlier, that's cool. That made this whole thing worthwhile to me. And like trying, Gang Tai Po, like, I mean, how good is that, right? So yeah, no, was it worth it? Yes. Was it necessary? Probably not. Could we have done this better with a little bit more planning? I think you can say that about almost anything. But yeah, look, we got it done. We move on to the next one.
It's real heat.
Yeah, what price?
I can see you're starting to sweat. You've got the head sweat.